Hey, how's it going? Let's try this again. So I did make this recording earlier and decided not to use a microphone. And the quality was not very good. But the way I came to wanting to make this video is that we had a local school board forum. And everywhere you drive around Zionsville right now, there is school board signs everywhere. So I went to make the video about it, went to the YouTube, which is the only place they posted it, and you have 300 views. So I'm just curious. I'm like, man, this is something that everybody cares about so much, right? All it is, my feed, everything is just full of this. Yet there seems to be a disconnect. So I started doing a little bit of drilling down on what is going on with our local elections, right? So how is it possible that we have all these people that care about their libraries, right? That's all I'm seeing, right? Micah Beckwith and people are like, how can these people be on the library? Well, are you paying attention, right? People are complaining about, police and fire, how they handle their calls, what kind of body cameras they have, all of these things, right? Healthcare. We're in a state where we have, I think it's 32 counties, no OBGYN, right? We are rated and ranked near the bottom in almost all critical healthcare measures. And these are the things that are impacted by local elections, right? You've got your schools. People right now, there's a whole thing today of Zionsville board candidate won't declare Nazis bad. Right? You see all of these things as they're pouring in the schools. Are these, private schools? Shall we have vouchers that go to private schools and fund private schools? These are all state activities. Our environment. We have the dirtiest water in the country. We have some of the dirtiest air in the country. So these are things that people care about, right? At least they say they care about them. So I started looking. So interest over time, the last 90 days, Indiana, what are people Googling from a trend standpoint? And here you've got abortion, crime, education, inflation, and taxes. Now you'll notice the blue for abortion, SB1 is going on, huge spike. Almost immediately comes down. We don't even get another spike when this thing actually becomes law. Maybe it's because the ACLU got us a little bit of a reprieve on this while it goes to the courts. I don't know, but this is just surprising to me. And I think this is what the GOP and some other areas of politics, they are banking on people having short-term memories. Not only is it not as top of mind as it was for just back in July, August, how is it going to be top of mind in 2 years where a lot of the key stakeholders in SB1 are up for re-election? A lot of them aren't up for re-election right now. So I started looking, and our voter turnout used to be actually above the national average. Unfortunately, this is back in the 1970s. You can see we've kind of gone up and down, but in general, we've really separated ourselves to be below the U.S. average when it comes to voter turnout. So bad that if you look at 2018, we are actually 37th in voter registration. I think some of that could have to do with some of the new rules that allowed you to register a little bit easier. But if you look at voting, 43rd, right? How do we go from being above the national average to the bottom 10%? Let's hope this year it's going to go up a little bit. If you look at the interest that we had and what is important to us from the Google Trends, you'll see they really line up well with this chart, right? The economy, abortion, healthcare, crime and safety, schools, environment, taxes, gun policies, right? Everybody remember the concealed weapons? COVID response. Everybody was up in arms on what are the responses and what are the responses for your area, for your county, for your city, for your town, for your school. You get my point, right? These are the politicians and the bills and laws they come up with that impact us the most on a day on a day-to-day standpoint. And if you look at this list, I've highlighted abortion, local, right? SB 1, perfect example of that. The federal government, the Supreme Court are saying, look, we're pushing more things back to your state. So when you look at race relations, how does that look if it is put into the Indiana legislature hands, right? Healthcare, again, we are underfunding our healthcare to an extreme measure that very few other states have the risk appetite that we have to not invest in healthcare and in schools. We are one of the poorest funded when it comes to education. We are overachieving in that space, but we have already moved over $100 million from public schools to private schools. And the people that are deciding to do this, they're not the president. They are the people that are running in your local elections that are going to be coming up again November 8th. If you look at the environment, again, these are the people that are not putting the restrictions in place, the due diligence in place on our environment and people that are polluting it. Taxes, our gas taxes are one of the highest in the country. So when you hear all these GOP candidates saying, oh, inflation and Biden and this and that, no, at one point we were paying 81 cents per gallon just in state taxes, right? So that is a big impact. Gun policies, right? The fact that we don't want to do the background checks, the fact that we want concealed carry, all of these things are done here locally. I'm optimistic that when this chart that says how likely are you to vote this midterm compared to past midterms, right? 59% said more motivated to vote. I hope that's true. 30% about the same, and 7% are less motivated. I don't know what drives that. I think eventually things go so far to one side that maybe people just check out and decide they're not going to partake anymore. So I started to look at how do we vote for midterms? Midterms and just elections in general. An interesting thing, if you look here, the people making less than $35,000 actually show up less to vote than the people making $75,000 or more. Now, the irony in this is the people making $35,000 or less are the ones that could benefit the most from the proper local politicians, bills, laws, all of those things, the accountability. The thing I think that drives this is that is a population that has the least flexibility in their work. They might be dependent on public transportation. There's a lot of different things that probably go into why this is such a low voter turnout. Whereas if you're making $75,000 or more, you probably have a little bit more autonomy in what you're doing from a professional workplace. You might be more likely to do early voting, all of those things. So it kind of builds on itself, right? So a certain group or GOP stays in power. They make it more restrictive for people making less money to come and vote because they're more likely to vote Democrat. So it kind of builds on itself. The other part about agent voting, I don't think this is a surprise other than to say, look, people that are younger, you've got to get engaged. You've got to get out and vote. You and us, right? So I'm in the 45 range here. We're right in the middle, 58.6% it looks like voted. Our registration was almost 10% higher, so we had great intentions that didn't come in and do it. But we have to live with this. Our kids have to live with this. My two daughters have to live with the fact that we have allowed this state to really run based on very little voice and representation. We are just not good at getting out and sharing our voice. And what has this led to? I mean, it has led to a supermajority, right? So 14 years of supermajority. With only 4 years kind of breaking that up with the Democrats having the House. And this is how you end up being ranked at the bottom on so many things. And maybe even more concerning, I mean, we've got 54 seats that are up this year that are running unopposed. 14 of them are going to be Democrat. 40 of them are GOP. So all of these people that are so up in arms over SB1, concealed carry, all of these other bills, there's nobody running against them. They are going to win, right? And this isn't a mistake, right? They came and had the special session about budget, which then somehow ended up being very little about budget, and became all about women's health care, and ran through the criminal aspect as opposed to the health care panel. And they set up this whole special session the day after you could register to run, right? So they get it, right? It's like the GOP they've got their stronghold, and they're going to keep it. And the way you do that is not letting people go against these unopposed seats. Some people are breaking the code, though, right? So you've got Joey Mayer. She, at the very last minute, threw her hat in the ring. I remember going to one of her first speaking engagements. And no disrespect, but you could tell this was new, right? This was new. She was still getting up to speed with just all of it. And then you've got Jen Bass-Patino, right? She also really had no ambitions of running for her seat. But both of them saw that there was going to be nobody there from a juxtaposition, right? So it was going to be conservative GOP running against nobody. So they raised their hand and they jumped in. And we need more people to do this. This is not one of those cases where you've got to go be a seasoned politician and run an elegant campaign. A lot of these seats, the amount of votes they get, not that crazy. If you look at this, 88% of county seats are going to be GOP. I mean, do you know that there's people getting county seats that have 1,000 votes, 1,500 votes? We've got people in Zionsville Town Council that have 600 votes. These are not things that you need to commit yourself to multi-year campaigns. You just got to get out. You've got to get engaged. You've got to get your friends engaged. And if we're not going to do that, then we really can't say anything about the fact that we're ranking near the bottom in so many areas. The GOP is fine with that. They love to pump their chest over their $6 billion that they call a surplus. What I call it is you haven't managed pollution. You haven't helped or funded any social programs. You've literally underfunded the schools and then also taken the money that is there and given it to private schools. So you're privatizing that. Healthcare, it's just laughable, right? When you look at it as far as a mother dying at birth, we are number 3 in the country. Infant mortality, we are one of the worst in the country. Access to health care is abysmal. Access to daycare once you have that kid and things like that none of them are there. And they know it. They just don't care. But why would they care until we start making them share their positions? Until they have competition that comes out and says, why did you vote this way? Why don't you take a stance on this? We are going to have these people that come in and the only time you hear from them is on the House floor when they're talking about their love of Christ and everything else. That's the only time we hear from them. Then they go back, we all calm down, and by the next election cycle, everybody's busy, I'm not a politician, all these other things. It's just a nasty cycle, and we've got to have the wherewithal to come in, understand that, and upset it. Thanks.